Oh, now I've seen your eyes. I can never go back. I will never go back. Oh, since I've held your heart, I can never go back. I will never go back. Oh, in every wave, wide awake, wide awake. Keeping you safe, wide awake, wide awake. Breathe in the day, wide awake, wide awake. Standing, I'll stay, wide awake. Darling, take my hand. Let me show you a way. Let me show you a way. I will make my feet to stand. I won't bow to a fear. I won't bow to a fear. Oh, in every wave, wide awake, wide awake. Keeping you safe, wide awake, wide awake. Breathing the day, wide awake, wide awake. Standing, I'll stay, wide awake. Oh, 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 Okay, so that is Wide Awake by Sarah Otto, and this is day 19 of the AOS Stay Home and Sing challenge. I discovered this song through a documentary that I just started watching recently called The Truth About Vaccines, and I've never really looked too deeply into this subject before, and never really held a particularly strong opinion about it one way or the other. And I've never really been much of a subscriber to the news in general, and this past weeks that I've been in quarantine in the United States has made me realize how polarized the people here can be, and in a large way it's because of the bipartisan or two-party political system that they have here. And as someone who is not from here, as an outsider, so to speak, it's kind of, I guess I have not been subjected to this left-wing, right-wing narrative as much as perhaps the people who have lived here all their lives have been. So in that sense, I cannot say how it's like to be subjected to that narrative your entire life, and I would never truly fully understand the perspective of someone who has been subjected to that narrative for most of their life. And for me, these are just narratives that you can choose to give power to or not. I've had arguments, mini arguments online with people whose perspective is very much colored by this left-wing, right-wing narrative, which I do not subscribe to. And anyone who subscribes to that narrative would naturally perceive any information with that particular bias. They would be like, oh, that information belongs to that wing, that information belongs to that wing, and if I belong to that wing, I do not want to see anything coming from that side because that side is evil, and for me, who is not from this country, who does not subscribe to these narratives, it's a little bit baffling sometimes, and it's often very difficult to kind of talk on the same page with those who subscribe to these narratives, not realizing that these narratives have been created to perpetuate division and polarization in the country. And it's easy when you are in the midst of this us versus them sort of mentality to think that anything from the opposite side is bad, evil, and to be avoided. But and when you perceive things that way, it's very easy to be blinded to in a way the truth itself, because as long as the truth is presented to you from this opposite side, to you it's not the truth because it comes from the opposite side. And for me, all information is information. In a sense, perhaps because I don't see things in this black and white polarized way, I'm able to navigate through different information and just kind of decide for myself what resonates and what doesn't, what rings true and what doesn't, without caring where that information comes from, because the message, if it contains truth, no matter who says it, it's still the truth. Person A can say, oh yeah, the apple falls from the tree because there is gravity, and person B can say the exact same thing, and they would both be true, no matter who these two people are, whether they come from different races, different political beliefs, different religions. That statement is still true. So just because that truth comes from someone that maybe is not the kind of people you typically associate with doesn't change the fact that it is true. And someone once said, pay attention to the message more than the messenger, because the messenger will always be a human being with faults, with flaws, with imperfections. Human beings make mistakes. I would think that there are very few people who can confidently say they have never lied in their entire lives, never broke any laws, never broke any rules. And it's easy to say, oh, this person did this bad thing in the past, so nothing he says can be trusted. But how would you feel if somebody else decided to define your worth based on that one mistake that you did in the past? How would you feel if, because you made that one mistake, you are judged as untrustworthy forevermore? Even when you're telling the truth, nobody believes you because of that one mistake. How would that feel if you are in that position? So for me, rather than trying to decide who is the more trustworthy source, and cross-referencing things with all sorts of different sources, I find that it's more important to train our own abilities to recognize truth in an unbiased, unattached way, in the sense like, oh, this contradicts my beliefs, but it rings with truth, and I decide that the truth is more important than my beliefs. And it takes a certain kind of courage and self-awareness to be able to confront the truth in that way, even when it goes against everything you thought was true before. And yet the truth it transcends right and wrong. So as long as you just want to be right, then you'll never really discover the truth, because you'll only be right. You create the experiences you want to have. So if you want to be right, then you will keep finding excuses and reasons to be right all the time, whether it's true or not. And for me, the truth is much more important than right and wrong. It's just the truth speaks for itself. It resonates with a very specific frequency that you can learn to recognize if you attune yourself to it. And so this issue about vaccines has been obviously a highly polarizing and dividing sort of subject, which as someone not from the United States, I have not been exposed to a lot of it. And this documentary, which is where I discovered this song that I sang, has been highly informative and opened my eyes in many ways to the complexity of this issue, of how it's really not black and white. It's not just it's all bad or it's all good. It's somewhere in between, but it's the case with everything. Nothing is all bad or all good, The internet can be bad or it can be good depending on how you use it. And I think this applies to everything in life. It all comes down to how it's being used. And personally, I've never really liked to take medications. I've never really liked to rely on quick fixes in a way. even for simple things like period pain, I never take those pills to you know, to weather through that discomfort, because I don't want to become dependent on that relief. I want to be strong enough to handle whatever comes my way as naturally as possible, and only if I absolutely, like, you know, can't handle it, then maybe I'll take some form of medication for it, but otherwise I generally stay away from them, because I trust in the body's natural ability to heal. And I think this entire narrative that um, that makes you believe that your body is weak and useless and incapable of defending itself without these drugs, so to speak, it never made sense to me. Not in the sense that, oh, I don't want to believe it, but rather in the sense of I know that that's not true. And there's a difference between a knowing and a belief. A knowing doesn't change whether or not you believe in it, in the sense that you can know something to be true, and whether you believe in it or not, it doesn't change the fact that it is true. But a belief is something that colors your perception, and in a sense that you can believe in it and therefore it's true, or you can choose to not believe in it and therefore it doesn't apply anymore. And for me, this has always been a sense of knowing, that we are strong, that our bodies are built strong, and science and medicine, the advancements in these fields have been wonderful, and it has brought so many benefits to humanity. But to believe that we are nothing without them kind of discounts the entire numerous centuries that we have survived without this modern medicine, you know, and so many traditions of natural therapies, natural medicine, that makes use of natural herbs and plants have existed for millennia in various parts of the world, and the reason why they've existed for so long is because they worked, you know. And for modern medicine to come in with their profit-based model, denouncing that all these natural therapies don't work, that all these herbs and plants are useless and kill people, makes no sense, you know. So I don't think it is anti-scientific to say something like that, because science is about the quest for truth and the quest for knowledge. The scientific approach involves being able to look at data, and even if you don't like that data, if that data is true, then you accept that to be true. I'm not a scientist, but to me that makes sense, you know. You're gonna encounter data that doesn't fit in with your beliefs, that you don't like, but the scientific approach would be to accept that, you know, that data is stronger and more important than what you want to be true. But what tends to happen these days is science has become dogma, a belief, and it is insidious in the sense that it is pretending to be science, but it is not. And it has abused the trust and reputation that these authorities have. They have fooled the populations to believe in them, to trust in them. They've abused that authority, and it's unacceptable. And in the process of trying to protect their failing system, they try to censor whatever they don't like. They censor whatever contradicts their dogma. They say that this is science, but it's really dogma. So many scientists have been persecuted for speaking the truth. Many of them lost their careers, some lost their lives. And to me, that is not the behavior of a truly scientific science community. Because I think that if a truly scientific science community wouldn't just kill off whatever contradicts their existing body of knowledge, to me that looks more like a spoiled child who wants to punish whoever doesn't want to give him a toy, doesn't want to give him his toys. It's immature, and it's getting exposed more and more with each passing day. And this documentary about vaccines has certainly made a lot of sense and presents the issue in a very well-rounded way, in the sense that it's not that vaccines are all bad. It's just that they don't want to admit it when bad things happen. They cover things up. There's a lot of dishonesty, there's a lot of cover-ups, there's a lot of censorship, and I think that is what is unacceptable for me, at least, because I don't agree with any form of control in this way, where transparency is not upheld, and where honest, good people are being punished for doing the right thing, while people who are not interested in serving the public and only interested in serving themselves get rewarded. And for me, that system needs to change, and it needs to change sooner rather than later. So yeah, the song itself, with its title, Wide Awake, I guess it describes this way where once you become exposed to this information, once you realize that all these narratives that you've been fed are based on lies, it's not possible to unknow it, to unsee it, to go back to being asleep. You just can't. Once you wake up, you wake up. And more are waking up. And that's the only way that this long overdue system will crumble and be replaced with something that is much more empowering, abundant, and in the interests of the people, the masses, rather than the 1%. Yeah, hope you enjoyed that song and this blabbering. Thank you for your time, and see you tomorrow.